Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar on exchanging European experiences on online teaching and cooperation. My name is Tuuli Oksanen. I'm from TAC, Tampere Adult Education Center. I'm a development coordinator and also a project coordinator of this Learning Path project. This webinar is organized by our Erasmus Plus project, and the official name of the project is Digitalized Learning Path for Educational Organizations, but we call it Learning Path because the official name is too long. You will find more information about our project on our website, eulearningpath.com. And here, first column is about the project and also about the framework used in this development work, which is the DICCOMP EDU, European framework for the digital competence of educators. The objectives of our project is to create an organizational learning path, teachers' learning path, and then a learning path for corporate instructors and other stakeholders. We are all developing, we have 5 organizations from Finland, Denmark, Portugal, Germany, and Austria, and we are all developing our organizational roadmaps. In other words, strategies for developing and enhancing the digital capacity of our educational organizations. Within this project, we have also involved people from our organization's top management. So the development of the organizational strategies is embedded in our organizational work with the support of our top management. The learning paths of the teachers are individual needs, and again we use the European framework, the DICCOMP EDU, and the tools provided within that framework for assessing personal digital competence levels, and from there on all the project workers are developing their own learning paths for developing their individual digital competences. You find more information on our website, and here you will also find more information about the European framework for the digital competence of educators. Very shortly, this is our project, and we have already uploaded some examples of the teachers' paths, as well as some examples of the organizational roadmaps on our website. Our project ends at the end of February next year, so we will keep updating the website, and for example, some of our partners have already uploaded their organizational roadmap models, and but there will be more information to come while we continue the development work. At this point, I will pass the microphone on to our first presenter. So we have presentations first from Denmark, then from Portugal, then from Germany, and then from Austria. And the presenters will introduce themselves at the beginning of their presentations. And as I already mentioned, please type all possible questions into the chat window. So please, Denmark, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Tuuli. So I'm Pernille, and I'm project coordinator of this project Learning Path. And I will show you a presentation from our Vice President, Laila. She could not be here, unfortunately, but she made this video presentation instead that I will play for you. So let's see what she has to say.
Hi, my name is Leila Emiliussen Hårgaard. I'm the Vice Director of VUC Storstrøm. I made this video because it's not possible for me to show up at the conference today. I hope that I will have the opportunity to meet you again. I'm invited to talk about the development of the teacher's competences and how it is organized and connected to our strategy. I will only have focus on the digital competences. We think that we have an important role to play to make sure that low-skilled adult citizens are getting an education. Some citizens' basic skills like learning to read, learning to write, or foreign language or math is very low, so we are there to raise that. A lot of our students hesitate to go into different kinds of learning situations, so it is important to create inspiring and meaningful learning environment for the students. It is also a part of our strategy to make sure that the learning outcome matches to the competences in the society, the firms, or in further education. Besides that, we also want to raise the completion rate. To fulfill that, we also have to look at the teacher's competences. But before I'm going to talk about that, I will tell you about VUC Storstrøm and our learning design. We have 6 departments. Some of the classes are very small. To make sure that we could offer a good variation of courses, we have connected the global classroom concept. That is very much like Teams, like Know or Zoom, but it is also connected to Smartboard and a good communication, sound and camera system to give the optimal learning outcome. It means that we are moving towards the hybrid school, where it is possible for the students and the teachers to be at different places, at school, at home, in a car, on the train, at the hospital, and still be a part of a learning situation. But again, it possesses big expectations to the teacher skills that goes beyond what they learned at the university before they got employed by us. If we start with the big why, just to tell the teachers why are we doing that? Why do we have the focus on digital skills? It's because when we are looking at the 21st century skills, for instance, information technology are changing the way we are working and the way we are communicating. And we are only at the very start, the very beginning on this journey. If I have to design how we understand learning design, it is the connection between pedagogical practices and IT didactics. If we are talking about the how, we're going to look at 3 major aspects that we find important to enhance learning. We want, for the first, wider view on learning paths and multimodality. It goes beyond the classroom. We are looking, and second was, at the learning paths for the students and the learning outcome. And the third one, the most important one, for instance, what we are talking about right now is the teacher who are the designers of the learning path and their competences. Our goal is that the students are producers of their own learning. And the expectation we have to reach that goal is the teachers design open and creative learning paths and are focusing on the connection between learning strategies and learning tools to contribute the learning activities. We want to increase and enhance the learning environment to make sure that it is the student who are the producers of their own learning. We have defined a lot of situations where it can take place. It contains a huge variation of blended learning situations. They can produce movies, podcasts, collaborative teamwork, digital formative evaluation, and creative writing. The learning tools that we are using is the LMS system, for instance Canvas, where there is a lot of opportunities to develop learning paths. We are constantly between developing the way we are using Microsoft Teams. So for us, it's important to challenge the digital tools all the time to make new and exciting learning situations for the students. And to develop and support the teachers' competences, we have been working with the structural part of our organization. First, all the leaders has to be dedicated and aligned to the process. And definitely they are. We know that teachers are at different development stages when it comes to learning design. Where I am placed in the organization, I put efforts on and talk with the leaders about what I think is very important. And I think it's very important that they are role models, that they are in the front of the development at the competence for the teachers. They have to be in dialogue with the teachers all the time. And it needs very specific dialogue, of course, to make sure that there is a room for making different kinds of experiments, that there is room for knowledge sharing, to have the right communication about it, and to have some system to share it. To support the leaders and the teachers, we have a development department where the focus is on international and national projects that are supporting internal development of the teachers. We have learning consultants who are specialized in IT didactic. Pernille Sørensen, who are with you today, for instance, is one of them. The learning consultants also have different kinds of skills that is very important in developing learning design and in developing the teachers' skills. They are making courses for the teachers that support all what I have been talking about. They are also supporting the leaders and the teachers in developing the learning design. Beside that, we have what we are calling learning lighthouses. That is teachers that are in special training paths and in tight dialogue with consultants. And the goal for the learning lighthouse teachers is, because they are colleagues to the teachers and equal to their own colleagues, our goal is to create peer-to-peer competences development. We want to create situations where they can help colleagues to find it, who find it difficult to navigate in learning design. They can support in collaborative learning situations. They have an important role when it comes to communication and when we are talking about learning design in the teams. To succeed in developing the teachers' competences, it is also about positive communication. Therefore, I'm very focused on that all the leaders, me inclusive, the learning consultants and also the learning lighthouses are in dialogue with the teachers, that we constantly affect the opinion and convince through positive dialogue. We want to be in charge, not in control. Make sure that we have an environment for the teachers where there is a good atmosphere, and it is okay to say it is difficult. It's okay to fail and just try again. Involvement of the teachers is very important to make sure that they are committed to the competence development. The leaders has to talk with the teachers about the why, the how, when, and with who when we are talking about the competences. Changing through competence development is a part of every learning path situation. In our competence development, we have focused on supporting the teachers and be in constant dialogue. Make sure that there is a room for knowledge sharing, and be aware of that through communication that the strategy, the goal, and the are clear. If not, revisit it again And again, it is also a part of our strategy. Thank you. I wish you all a good day.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pernille and Laila. If you have any questions about Laila's presentation, Pernille is online and she can answer them on the chat window.
Yeah.
And now we'll move on to Portugal. So Tanya and Lara, please introduce yourself and you may continue.
Hello to all attendees in this session and thank you for being here. My name is Tanya Alves. I am a project manager at the Training and Qualifications team of ISQ Research and Development Unit. And I have been working around almost 5 years on ISQ, and my work was always related to education and training projects. ISQ is a private Portuguese organization with over 50 years of experience working in engineering, technical and regulatory inspections, training and research and development. This is a really short presentation of my company. You can visit our website if you want to know more. When lockdown started, ISQ focused on giving its workers the conditions for the remote working. The VPN service was improved. There were provided laptops and internet hotspots, better phones and internet package so we can be connected from almost anywhere. And these were some of the things that helped us smooth the impact of this change in our lives. ISQ also implemented Microsoft Teams as the tool to be used by all the workers for communication, for online meetings, and of course, we also implemented webinars on how to work with it. And many other webinars were promoted to improve the shift to remote working. There were promoted webinars on leadership skills, on how to be productive on remote work with tips to be organized and how to plan our work from home. And this was made for all the organization. But now I want to focus more on our training unit, that is ISQ Academy. When our training center needed to close doors, we needed to reorganize our in-class training already planned to start were cancelled, and many problems need to be solved at this time. Problems like how to shift our training contents to digital content, how to proceed with the practical training, where we have trainees that have to deal with robots, welding and gas equipment. And of course, we also needed to be sure that we were complying with the sectorial training regulations. Our staff made a lot of effort to transform the face-to-face training into online in our Moodle platform. And the Zoom was the selected tool for the online training. For that, we developed a Zoom guide, and all our trainers participated in webinars on how to use the tool. And this was also organized by ISQ Academy team. In some technical training for the practical part, the trainer was alone in class using the equipment while the students were online watching his performance. In the case of the course of automation and robotics and industrial control, was used as software to promote remote access to the equipment by trainees. And this was very helpful for practicing and also for the assessment of the trainees. We also created a team to evaluate online tools, and this team evaluated till the moment more than 50 tools. They were analyzed, and for the ones that we selected as more suitable, we plan to train the trainers on how to use it. And some of them, we are already using it to enrich our training content. We can say that currently, I think 50% of our training is being delivered online. And at this point, ISQ Academy is moving to hybrid learning. ISQ equipped the training classrooms with video conference equipment and smart boards, so we can offer not only face-to-face training, but also include people that are from home and from other ISQ Academy facilities, like we have in the north of the country. And you can see pictures of a training session where this equipment is being used, and also trainees are using Jamboard as a collaboration tool. I can say that a lot of efforts were made from all people involved in this digital transition. From the top management to trainees, we notice a true commitment. And this was a brief description of how things change for us in ISQ at an organizational level. I will now give the floor to my colleague Lara Ramos, that has been involved as a participant in this project since the beginning.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tanya. As Tanya said, I'm going to share with you in this morning my experience as a trainer during this phase, and also share with you my digital learning path by being involved in the Learning Path project. I am a trainer at ISQ Academy for about 7 years, and since 2016 I joined the training and qualifications team of ISQ R&D unit as a European project manager. At the beginning of my learning path, I was able to evaluate competencies on the check-in tool, and these are the results that I'm seeing now. I always considered myself as a digital engaged, but the results showed me that I needed to boost my digital competencies. This was more or less 2 years ago. So I've tried to design an action plan at the time, and I had so many questions. How can I increase the use of new collaborative tools and online environments with my colleagues and with my students? How can I overcome the entropy of introducing a new tool? Because this can be quite time-consuming, and it can be a barrier instead of a facilitator of our work. And what is the range and potential of those tools? And last but not the least, how can I find the time? Not only for self-learning, but also to engage others to use them. But I can tell you a secret in advance. In Portugal, we have a traditional saying that says, "A necessidade faz o engenho," or in good English, necessity is the mother of all inventions. So this means that if you don't have a choice, you just need to jump into it and get committed. So I imposed myself to get committed in this project and with my digital learning path. And in the last months, by improving my own digital skills, I was also able to capacitate others in my institution in peer learning situations, like the ones that Tanya just explained. So I confess that starting was a bit slow, but with the learning path, learning activities, like in the photos that you are seeing now, that I was able to attend in Berlin with OSZ and in Norway with VUC, were for me, without a doubt, an opportunity to open my mind and exchange good practices between trainers from other institutions and countries. And there, I could share my experiences and hear about other solutions and strategies. And for me, this was like a teaser. It gave me inspiration to take small actions and accelerate my path. And all of a sudden, it came, the pandemic crisis. And more than ever, we had the urgent need to use collaborative online tools. Work and teach at distance was no longer an exception, was a rule, as Tanya just showed us before. And the true necessity is the mother of invention, remember? So more than a threat, this was an opportunity for the institution. So to rethink our ways of work, to finally take the time to learn more and attend webinars about specific tools. And Learning Path project learnings for me were critical in this phase. I could take lessons learned and get into deep exploring, experimenting, and mastering the best tools to use in digital work approaches, not only in my daily job as a project manager, but also as a trainer, by using several tools, Teams, Articulate, or Mural, just to mention some. And finally, more than time and willingness, I had the urgency and means to do it, since I belong to one of the teams that facilitated the digital remote working transition inside my company. In conclusion, I just want to share with you some more thoughts. The true turning point is that everyone is changing their mindsets, not only inside ISQ, but also in all companies around the world. To incremental changes happen, we need first to change the way that people think. To change ways of work, people must be open to do it, to feel the needs and the urgency, and then be also engaged in the process. And this is very important. Be guided in the right way to do it and have the right tools to do it. And here the organization have the lead role. The organization culture must support all human resources, learning paths, and especially the digital ones, the ones that we are talking about. So before today's presentation, I have the curiosity to take again the check-in assessment. And these are my results now. I know that I still have a long way to run, but I'm very happy to see my evolution. And now there is no turning back. More than ever, Learning Path is a never-ending process. Thank you all for listening. I wish you a good session.
Thank you very much, Tanya and Lara. Very interesting insights into the competence development at ISQ. At this point, I am sorry to say that our last presenter, Ulla Sever from BFI Austria, has some technical problems with her connection, which means that our next speaker, Mr. Matthias Döbler from Germany, has a little bit more time, but this is no problem because I know Matthias has a lot to say. So go ahead, Matthias, please introduce yourself and the floor is yours.
The ironic positive commentary. By yourself, yeah. Okay. Yeah, Martin is helping me to get the presentation ready. And we will soon start. I'm talking from Berlin, from the College of IT Technology and Medical Device Technology. And what I'm going to present to you, or hope to present to you, is some conclusions on our COVID-19 lockdown experience and the distance learning which we did. As you can see, I'm a quality manager at this institution and also European coordinator. And my presentation is going to be a short introduction, so you can understand the background from which I'm talking. Then I will talk about a survey which we did with our teachers and students after the teaching started again in May, and some conclusions which I can draw from this survey as well as our own learning path in this institution. So here you can see who we are, and I've taken advantage of Martin's presentation of our SIMD in a nutshell, just to give you an idea how many students we have and how many dual training partners we have. So we're quite a big institution with 4 departments. And like the other institutions who are with us today, we already started in 2017, 18, and it's a long way which we have gone before COVID-19. And I think COVID-19 was a kind of accelerator in a way, but we already had started earlier to think about digital learning and assessments and teaching and all that. And we could see that we were aware that there are great differences between what we wanted to do and within and between the courses which we are teaching, because we are an IT college. Of course, we have IT specialists, and we're training students who will work in the IT sector later on as programmers, as networkers, and so on. So that's a little bit special from the kind of staff and the students as well, where we are. We designed, after the COVID lockdown ended and we started in May, 2 questionnaires. One was for teachers because we wanted to know what was their experience with online teaching and distance learning, and one was similar for students. And as you can see, we had some areas, especially for the teachers, about their own experiences and the contact to students, which we found interesting. Which media did they use, and how did they estimate the outcomes of their own teaching? What expectations did they have for further trainings? And what would they immediately need to support their teaching process in the classroom? And which further challenges would they see? We designed a similar questionnaire for the students because we wanted to match the questions and answers. And but I will focus mainly in my presentation on the teachers because they are the first ones to address. We had almost 92 of our 160, 140 teachers at that time, I think. And the first finding which we had, which was positive, was that most of them said that the internal cooperation among teachers at that time was excellent and very good, and they needed that also. They phoned each other, they sent each other emails to help each other to get along with the teaching situation. And also that the board of our college gave very good, excellent information and guidelines what to do, how to handle these situations during the lockdown period. So the new situation for them was not considered to be an overload or too stressful, as many of them said. They got along with it quite well, as it seems. And what they did was they transformed their paper versions of material into digitally accessible media through our learn management system, basically Moodle, or they sent it via email. That was the quickest response. Teachers offered also individual counseling and response to some needs with the student urges through chats or video conference system if they could handle that, but they felt insecure about the legal basis of this and the technical handling at some time. So first impression is it was a quick, fast, positive response. They used whatever they had available, and but as you will see, there are also some deficits. One of the deficits which came out in the survey was that our teachers lacked initiatives to engage in long-term projects. As we normally teach project work quite extensively, and we try to be close to company situations. This was some experience which the students found missing. It seemed that the teachers worked from one lesson to another and rather didn't have a long-term concept. Then there was also some insecurity about tests and assignments and how can we measure the outcome of our learnings, how can we conduct tests. So that was a necessity which the teachers felt very strongly. And then there was also the difficulty of, just a minute, the difficulty of providing timely and immediate feedback. And I think that's a very important question which I would like to address here very strongly, that we need digital tools to help us to stay in contact with students and provide feedback, a meaningful one, because feedback, as we all know from the Hattie studies, is a very, very important factor for successful learning and for motivating learning. So this was missing. And the students felt very isolated through this. Then there was a very low ability of technical skills and using collaborative tools. Mainly it was a one-way kind of interaction, sending things out and sometimes receiving things, correcting them also, but to initiate collaborative working among the students and learning was obviously missing at that time. The teachers themselves were quite skeptical about the results of their teaching. They were very well aware that there were lots of deficits, and especially educational effects, for example, differentiation between slow and fast learners or other individual needs which people had. Also, they were skeptical about the ability of digital tools to use it for all subjects, because we as a vocational college, we have some areas like electronics or medical device technologies where it's very difficult to transform this into digital means. And they thought, well, we needed also hands-on approaches, and sometimes you couldn't do that, the same learning effects with digital tools. Then there was also the great issue which came up on data security. Where are the data stored? How are they used? And where do they go? And can we ask students voluntarily just to join, or can we ask them? Can we demand from them to join these conferences? What is the legal basis on that? Because very often some of our students had families and they were distracted, they had problems themselves. So what are the legal demands which we can probably ask for them? And how do we reach those students which are socially distant, which are just stuck away and which are just don't show up in all these sessions? This was also a problem which we were very skeptical, and was the first time that we really experienced this. Normally they sit in the classroom, we can talk to them, and suddenly they were away. Or they just didn't have the technical facilities also, which sometimes really is a problem. So besides the positive effects, we had these deficits and the skepticism among teachers. And how did we react? We asked the teacher, what would you like to improve your digital competences, into which areas? And here you can see a chart which came out from asking 92 teachers, which is 65% of our staff. Most of them said, well, we need some more support in conducting tests and assessments, or with agile learning software like Trello, Mahara, or producing videos and other things. Calendar tools, internal coordination, this was not so important for them, as well as the guidance on the learn management system, which is already available. The necessity, in a way, was traditional teaching on digital media. And you may say that this is not surprising, because most of them had not really experienced and explored the chances which digital media do have. Also, when we asked what kind of support would you want in order to enhance your technical competences, and it turned out that most of them wanted or needed technical assistance to learn about the systems, and also, which came out very strongly, and which is an important factor now in our institution, they needed to have cooperation exchange among themselves in their departments and be able to adjust the digital tools to the needs which came from the curricula and from the actual teaching processes. So continuous cooperation within their main teaching departments and domains is very important to them. Then they said we need a common consensus in our college about basic standards of digital teaching, so that we can all assume that our colleagues have the same standards as we have. Common technical equipment, so I don't have to change my computers and my software all the time. I mean, we are a big institution with many students here in many rooms, like you are as well. So that's very essential to have the same equipment everywhere, so it makes life much simpler. And easy access to a pool of digital teaching, learning material and teaching material, and of course a technical support which is close to your immediately daily needs. It's not important or not useful at some times to have some further training which comes once in a while, but you need assistance after that close to your daily routine and the questions which raise up in your ordinary teaching. In August, before we go back to normal teaching, we always have these workshops, and we ask them at this time, what do you want as teaching, as further trainings? And as you can see, most of them, the teachers joined Moodle courses, team courses, and also test design and questionnaires in Moodle, educational didactical e-portfolio seminars. So we had a huge response from the teachers at that time in August coming from the background and experience, I think, of the COVID area, that they want to really get into a much better understanding, much better handling of many digital tools which we were able to offer to them. At that time, also in August, when the studio started, we decided that for each class which we had, Moodle would be the central starting point as a learn management system. So we designed courses in Moodle for all classes in our house and urged teachers to use these for the starting point to communicate with their students, or to have material, or to organize seminars or something through these class-based courses. Now comes some of my conclusion. I don't want to overdraw too long. I think we need in an institution to have an overall consensus among the teachers and the board also on the importance of new skills and competences which are essential beyond the actual COVID situation. We shouldn't go into that kind of trap just to think about COVID as the central element. COVID will disappear at one way or the other, but the need for digital transition into a society and adapting our students will still be there. But this needs a consensus. Where do we want to go? How is the way and the pathway which we want to embed in? Then we shouldn't avoid confusion and lack of motivation for having too many technical devices, too many concepts, too many tools, and too many apps. But we should concentrate, and we should have a concert. I would call it a midterm concept, which we need. Which technical devices, which media will be used for learners, students, and teachers, so we can have not just individual isolated kind of learning paths in the institution, but have a more common concept and be able to exchange also. We need technical support which is easy accessible, as I said earlier, and for example, as Laila mentioned in the case of Denmark, by way of regular and personal consultations. That we have teachers who know something about the technical devices, the lighthouses in Denmark, and who can support our teachers in their daily routine. I think that's very important, because otherwise you will forget about, or you will just be frustrated if certain things don't work as you want. Fourth, we need to clarify in our institution what do we understand by digital competence in relating to the subjects and curricula which we teach in our courses and in the school or in the colleges. We shouldn't discuss this theoretical question probably too long, but if you don't have a common ground on which you can start, in our case in Germany it would be the agreement of Länders on the KMK competences. It might also be the European framework, but at least you have to discuss this. What is digital competence? What do you mean? And how can we develop this? And along with this, you need to know which methods and which digital tool will help to develop these digital competences which you want to develop further. And you have to train the students, of course, as well in these digital tools, and do not assume that they ought to know automatically. So this, at this point, the competence of teachers and the competence of students come very closely together. And I think it's important to take that into account as well if you wanted to develop your institution. Second is, you have to use, in our case, at least we do this or try to do this, the existing curricular structure. I think that it's very important that teachers have experiences with teaching subjects within the curricula. And why not start with small kind of micro trainings or other kind of short-term work, which is related to the curricular structure which you already have, and link this to probably the cross-curricular potentials which you discover when you use these tools. Start with the curriculum as the basic core ground and not with the tool or the app, but you want to do something educational and didactical. Last points would be, to do all this, you need teams within the college who will support this, who will also further the common understanding and transfer of knowledge among the staff. You need working groups or teams or whatever you call them, but there must be some driving part or some driving force. It's not an individual task of each individual teacher. You have, of course, also to cooperate with your external partner at this time to enrich your education institution. And some already mentioned learning situations. And I think that's very important, because otherwise we will just have simplistic and isolated approaches of teaching, and that's not a very good thing. We need to relate, especially in the vocational area, to what goes out in the real world, in the workplace. And instead of feeding the learners in one way from our institution to the learner, we should, if possible, embark on digital tools which raise the creativity and the needs, the potential of learners, and we have to use digital tools for feedback. And I think that learning is not just from the teacher to the student, but it's vice versa, and it's also a new role for teachers, which develops by using tools. It's more a counselor, it's more a supporter, it's more clarification, reflection of knowledge and what goes on there. And last but not least, you need to continuously monitor at a low level, evaluate what the processes are, because you need feedback in order to go further. Well, that's all from my side. Thanks for your attention, and I hope this is meaningful to you probably as well. And I say goodbye from Berlin then.
Thank you, Matthias. And okay, unfortunately, as I said earlier, the BFI Austria's presentation is not going to happen today, but we have their PowerPoint presentation and we will upload it to the website along with the other presentations later on. And are there any questions at this point or comments? Nothing at the moment. Just to conclude, from the presentations as well as the development work we've been doing within these 2 years this project has been going on, as Laila's and Matthias's presentations highlighted the importance of leading the teachers' competence development. So, for example, in this project, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've involved top management as project workers into the everyday work of developing the organizational strategies for digital competence development. This means that the project development work is not something extra or something separate from the processes of the organization, but instead we have been developing it according to the strategic focus points of each partner organization, and the commitment of the leadership and their own acting as examples has been very encouraging also for our teachers. Then again, if we talk about the individual teachers' learning paths, we had great examples from, for example, from ISQ, where Lara presented her path. All our project workers will make some kind of a presentation or a model of their own learning paths, and we will post them on the Learning Path website before the end of this year, so you can have a look at different examples of teachers' competence development paths. We have been emphasizing small steps. So as many of these presentations included, it doesn't have to be something big and you don't have to learn everything at once, but small steps, set realistic goals for yourself, and then as you reach the goals, then with the feeling of success, you usually want to learn a little bit more, and with small steps you proceed on your own path. And it is not the purpose that all our teachers are on the same level with their digital skills and competences, but always we are looking at it from the individual point of view. Obviously, we have some criteria, minimum criteria for the from the organization's point of view, but after that, it is everyone proceeds on their own paths. And cooperation, as Matthias highlighted just before, the community and the cooperation between the teachers is excellent in a way, sharing their success on their own learning paths. So you can start, for example, with the check-in tool, which Lara mentioned in her presentation, and then with the check-in tool you get recommendations on your development path, so concrete steps, what to do next, and you can use the check-in tool report as a starting point for your own learning path. But this is all for us at the moment. There's one comment in the chat, but does anybody want to say something? Martin, please.
I'm at Martin's computer. That's me actually again.
Oh, it's Matthias.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's me. Yeah, I'm sitting at Martin's computer.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention one other point, which is obvious, but is very important. I think the European project which we have is also one very important element, that we have a European exchange among institutions and can see the different ways in which we go about. Despite the fact that we have very different institutions and different, you say, people to address as customers, it's interesting for me during this project to see that we have common problems like coherence, like individual learning, like cooperation with external partners and others. And I think that's interesting. And that's a very important element also for motivating teachers to engage in these kind of processes, because they can see that in Portugal, in Denmark, in Finland, you don't have the same, but you have probably similar processes. You may start from different perspectives, but there is dialogue possible and working together is possible. And I think that's very important to, in the end of this talk and now as a result of our project, to see that these projects are very stimulating. Lara has pointed out the meeting in Berlin and how we could talk and how we could change. And I think I would, everybody who listens to us today also say, go about, start these projects, exchange on a European level also, because that's very motivating and it gives you new perspectives and new ideas how you can go about. And that's just the final comment I would like to make, because we are European and we are sitting in many different countries here. And I think it's very helpful. And the fact that we are different is no obstacle, but it's really an interesting fact which we can use and which we made use of in this project, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias. I completely agree with you. And I think I can speak for all of us saying that we've all learned a lot from each other. And the cooperation has our development work. There. Any comments the project partners want to make before we end this? Okay.
I just want to thank the opportunity, and this was a very good idea to organize this webinar. It's really good when we meet even online and share our experience. It's very enriching. You are muted. Matthias?
Matthias is speaking, but he's muted.
Yeah, you are
so
muted.
No, I wanted to say thank you to all the participants who joined us, who were interested.
Of course.
They took the time to come here. That's also interesting. Well,
yes.
Okay, that's all from my side today, I think.
Yeah. Thank you for all the participants, and please, if you have any further questions, if you want to talk to us, any one of us, please go to our website. You will find the contact information there, and you can directly contact any of us, and we'd be happy to discuss more. And also, I would really much like to hear others' comments and what the others have been doing, because this recent times has been a challenge and an opportunity for all the European well, all the countries in the world, I can actually say. So please, if you have good solutions, very good experiments, or anything you would like to share, we are very happy to receive any information. But I will now end the recording and the webinar. So thank you, everyone, and let's keep the digital competence development going.
Okay, bye-bye then.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.